Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Streamline Student Data and Communications SIS webinar. We are very excited to have you join us today as we explore how Sparkrock's student information system is tailored to meet the needs of schools in Alberta and Manitoba. So before we begin, my name's Meg Wilson. I'm a senior sales executive at Sparkrock, and I've been in this K-12 space for 8 going on 9 years. So super pleased to be hosting you in this webinar today. Yeah, and sit back and hope you have a coffee and enjoy the next hour. So a couple housekeeping items before we begin. Only our moderators and speakers will have camera access today. We do have a Q&A feature, so please use the Q&A feature for any questions or comments throughout this session. And at the end, we've reserved some time to address those questions. Kindly mute yourself and turn off the camera when not speaking. And again, I think that's controlled in the background anyway, so probably not an issue. And a recording of this webinar will be sent to you within a week, so please feel free to revisit or share it with others. Okay, so today's agenda. So today we're going to start off with introductions of the participants, and then provide an overview of Sparkrock. Then we're going to hear from a couple of our esteemed guests who will share insights. Initially, we'll hear from one guest, then we're going to get into the SIS product information and demo presented by Wendy Brown. And then again, we'll have some insights from our guests today. And finally, as I mentioned, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A session and some closing remarks. Okay, so later on, I'm going to be handing this over to one of my esteemed colleagues, Wendy Brown, and Wendy will be demonstrating the key functionality of our SIS. Wendy's highly experienced professional in the field of digital education. She has over 20 years of experience in school business enablement. So she's super passionate about helping schools transition to paperless digital future, and I'm sure you're going to see that during today's presentation. And then, as I mentioned, we have a couple of special guests today. I'm going to speak a little more about them as well, but really feel honored that we have both Dexter and Tom joining us today. Okay, so a little bit about Sparkrock. So first, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard the exciting news that Sparkrock and Assembly have merged. This merger is fantastic because it means we have an organization stronger than the sum of its parts. You know, by coming together, we have more resources dedicated to product investment, implementation, and support. And you know, here's some great examples of that. And apologize, I have something blocking my screen. The acquisition benefits our customers by combining the strengths and resources to really create an enhanced and more comprehensive offering, ensuring a better together version of the offering that we had individually. So with this merger, we are now managing $13.7 billion a year in finances across Canada. We are paying 10.7 payrolls throughout Canada and more than 100,000 employees and 20 plus years of industry experience coming together. And not to mention what we're bringing on the SIS side. We've got customers throughout Canada and really committed to supporting that product, and hence we're doing this presentation today. So the Sparkrock solution, obviously we've got the student information system, it includes the teacher portal, the family portal, but integrated with that will be the Sparkrock ERP ecosystem. So finance, HR, payroll, and an employee portal. And all of this is going to be built on this Microsoft Intelligent Cloud, utilizing some of the key Microsoft functionality that a lot of customers and I'm sure yourselves are used to today. So super exciting. You know, you're seeing a lot of things coming into the product like AI, and that will only continue to improve as we invest much heavier than you would have seen with the past products. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce our first guest, Dexter Durfey. Dexter, as many of you know, is a recently retired Secretary Treasurer who was honored with a Life Member Award at the 2024 ASBOA AGM at this past year. He's served twice as an ASBOA provincial president. His career began in '95 with West Wing School Division and continued till his retirement in 2024 with Palliser School Division. And Dexter's been pivotal in co-founding a lot of initiatives in Alberta, like the Wind Power Consortium, the Risk Managed Insurance Consortium. He's also led Alberta Transportation Task Force and audits to further increase funding and related legislative changes. So outside of his life, Dexter's a proud parent of 10. I still can't grapple with that. Being a parent of 4, and I thought that was a lot. 10 just blows my mind. And a grandparent of 20. He remains actively engaged as an education business consultant with a passion for innovative approaches and change management. So Dexter, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to hand it over to you to share your insights. And you're on mute. You're on mute, Dexter.
Blew it right there. Anyway, I appreciate that, Megan. Thank you very much. That was kind. Welcome, everyone. And I want to thank you very much for joining today as we spend a bit of time introducing you to the Sparkrock Student Information System. I'm excited to announce for anybody who hasn't heard that the Sparkrock SIS has been officially declared PASI compliant, making it an important alternative for Alberta school boards looking for stability and a really functional SIS software solution for Alberta. As I'm sure you're each aware that the SIS program is one of the most important components in our organizational operations as school boards. The SIS provides the data that determines the funding we receive in order to fund daily operations, including the funds for students with special needs or high needs and other grants related to student needs above and beyond, but including the base grants. So it's really the basis for how we fund our students, how we determine what programs we're going to be able to provide, and then to meet those student needs. It provides the ability to work with parents, to provide data around achievement for students. So it's a very critical piece, not only to the education, but the overall well-being of students. It can provide us links in terms of health and safety of students, and when a student's not there, and other issues that may occur, and communicating with families, which is very important. Sparkrock has been working tirelessly to ensure that this SIS product is suited for Alberta. The product, as I stated, was PASI compliant, and it provides a broad range of modules to meet all of the needs that you may have in your jurisdictions. My willingness to endorse the program or the product is based on the fact that it's customized for Alberta. It's not simply one of those pieces of software that comes in and we have to just continually work around, but Sparkrock has worked hard with the jurisdictions that are utilizing to make sure that they meet Alberta's needs and what we need to provide in order to receive our funding, in order to meet student needs. That includes the work around being PASI compliant, which is key. I'm confident that if you explore the capacity and capabilities of Sparkrock SIS, you'll discover the advantages that you'll reap by implementing in your division. My last division I was at, we implemented it, and following implementation, I believe it's meeting the needs every bit as well or better than past products. I've always found that the team at Sparkrock's willing to work with us to make sure that it does meet those needs, that it's customizable for Alberta, with a strong focus in Manitoba and Alberta. And so, at the end, when we have questions, I'm happy to answer any of those, but I really do appreciate everybody who's been able to attend today and to listen in and find out a way to maybe improve their operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dexter. I'm just going to take control of the slides here now. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For today's presentation, to help demonstrate all the benefits that Dexter just shared with us, I'm going to be taking us on a little bit of a journey. We're going to start off from the family portal from the parent's perspective, and this is where we connect the teachers, the students, and the parents. From there, we're going to look at the online registration tools and how you can have a more efficient process by automating the onboarding of new students or the validation or re-registration of returning students. And then from there, we're going to go over to the administration side of the student information system. We're going to onboard a new student from a digital form, and also assign them classes, look at the grade book, attendance, and so on. So when we first come into the solution, into the family portal, the first thing you're going to notice is all of your children on one screen. So in Dexter's case, that would be 10. He wouldn't have to log in 10 different times to find out how his children are doing in each of their classes. He would have one login and be able to access everything right from there. When we come through the online registration form, you're going to see that the form has the capability for you to have required fields, data validation to make sure data is being entered correctly, as well as it's highly configurable. So not every school division has the same form. Each one has unique needs, and our solution allows you to present a form that works for you and your requirements. Everything you're going to see today is mobile first. So as a responsive design solution, your experience on whichever device you prefer to use, whether that's a phone, a tablet, or a computer like I'm on today, the system is designed to give you the best user interface possible. We also support multiple languages for those families where maybe English is not their first language. When we come into the Mark book, you're going to see how it's very adaptable, not only to align with different proficiency scales, but also to various outcomes and learning outcomes based upon the course that they're taking. And this allows us to really make it easier when it comes to do your report cards, as well as for parents to really understand how their children are doing on their learning journey. As we go through the administration side and throughout the software, you're going to see how we're storing digital documents for the students. So not just report cards, but also maybe it's an individual education plan, or perhaps it is a attendance letter or a behavior letter. This is a secure repository for these types of communications. They can be wrapped in permission, so you can decide who has visibility on these documents, as well as share them up to the family portal so parents have access to them. The student record is where we all of the data about the student is managed, and you're going to see how it is segmented into different modules within the student record that are all wrapped in permission. So not everybody has full carte blanche on what to see in the student record. You can put permissions on that, and depending on your role would determine what you see. In the administration side, we have the dashboard, and for our Alberta customers, the dashboard includes a PASI interface that'll identify any issues with student records that you need to address. In addition to the dashboard, the PASI manager will identify issues by different alert types, allowing you to get to the most important ones first, as well as right in the student record. It allows you to compare what data is in the SIS and what data is in PASI. If there's any discrepancies, you can fix the data in the SIS and push the corrections up to PASI using a synchronization push icon. In other jurisdictions like Manitoba, we have built-in modules specific to those jurisdictions reporting. In this case, the screen we're looking at right now is the Manitoba reporting screen. So what that means is all of the reports that need to be submitted to the ministry are here, and when generated, they will output the data in the format that's required to be uploaded to the Ministry of Education. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this PowerPoint, and I'm just going to share my screen, and starting with the family portal. I'm already logged in to my environment, and so here I am. I'm a parent of two wonderful children. I've got Brett and I've got George. George is in grade 6 and Brett is in grade 11. In the center, we see our calendar of events that are happening, and on the right, we have our communication feed. Now, communication can be set one-to-one or one-to-many. In this example here, I have a communication that was actually set out by the whole school district. So every family in the whole school district is going to receive this communication. But I also have some that are just specific to the school or even just to a specific grade level. So in this example, the grade 11 students are going on a backcountry trip. Now, as we look to the left and we want to learn more about our students, our children, we just click on the icon, and this will bring up their full details that I have visibility to see. So the first screen is a summary. So the most important information first, of course, attendance, wanting to know if your children are going to school. Next, we have any outstanding fees. So the system is capable of managing fees as well as collecting online payments. And we'll look at that as we continue on our journey here. Continuing down, we have all of the current classes that this Brett is enrolled in. And within each class, we're able to drill down specifically to all of the activities and outcomes and how I am performing against those. So in this example, we are in a science class. We have our outcomes that are expected for this class. And for each outcome, the teacher is able to have different activities or units that feed into that final mark. Now, in this example, I'm using a color coding strategy, but we offer the ability to have multiple different types of grading strategies, as well as the ability to feed those and roll those up into final marks. So there's a lot of flexibility, whether it's a summative assessment or formative, or even diagnostic. You're able to define those in the mark book. Also, any comments or that the teacher has left are visible here for the parents as well, so they get the feedback specifically on those activities. As we continue down on this screen, we can also see any homework that is assigned. So for each one of the classes I'm enrolled in, homework can be assigned. I can identify it just by clicking on it and even drill down to any specific instructions or links out to other resources. So that's your summary screen. So as I said, all the most important information first. As we look down the left-hand side, we can continue to explore. So under digital documents, this is where report cards would be saved, IEP plans can be saved. In order to access those, they just click on it and it opens up the PDF. So in this case, a progress report. As we continue down, of course, we have all our family contacts here as well. But where I'm going to take us to is, we've already looked at the marks and comments. I want to show you the graduation requirements. So this is a great tool for parents and their children to work with together. It allows them to see their path to graduation. Currently, I'm looking at all of my credits that are earned, but I also can look at projected. And so projected is assuming that I'm going to pass all of the courses that I'm currently enrolled in. And here we can see how many credits that I will still need to get for each of the different categories. So in this case, this is my English diploma. So as we continue down here, we can also see any completed courses. So as I continue my learning journey, these are populated as I finish my courses at the end of each semester or each year. And standardized assessments. Now, I don't have any in this demo environment, and I know there's new changes coming in your province and in every province, really. Every jurisdiction has a different set of standard assessments, and we're highly configurable in this area. You can give visibility to the results of those assessments to your parents if you wish. Previous year's marks and comments are also accessible. So looking at the drop-down menu, I can choose which year I want to access, and it will show me my results for those previous years. As we continue down, we'll look at the special education. We'll look at this actually in more detail when we go into the admin side, as this specific student does not have a IEP plan. We talked about the fees on the summary screen. So not only can we track fees, but we can also track deposits, perhaps for textbooks, for example. But when I want to pay these through a merchant services integration, you're able to choose whichever fees it is you want to pay and then make a payment. Now just entering your credit card and checking out. And so that would record, of course, the payment received against those fees. So coming back to our homepage, and before we leave the family portal, there's a couple other things I wanted to point out. We looked at the fees. Coming down, we do have integration with different transportation providers. So if your student is taking a bus, this can populate and show them where do they get the bus on the way to school? Where do they get the bus on the way home from school? And part of the mobile first technology, they can, right from your phone, for example, you can look at the map, you can see exactly where you're supposed to be picking up the bus on your first day of school. I have one of those horror stories on my first day of school. The bus drove right by me. But with this type of detail, my parents would have been better informed of where I was supposed to be getting the bus. So let's come back to our homepage. Before we move over to the admin side, I mentioned the online forms. So there's two types of forms. There's forms that are specific to your student, so that you're often every year you need to do a verification form. And what's nice about the verification form is it will automatically pre-populate all of the information that we already have on that student. And if there are any changes, they can update it and submit it. And when it gets submitted, it will actually save a copy here that is accessible to you as the parent, but also down at the office, they'll see this form, and it's clearly identified which data points were changed when this form was submitted. So in this example, I changed my postal code and I changed my email address. Similarly, registering new students, you are able to access a blank form and complete the data. Again, these forms are highly configurable. Every customer has different requirements. You can have, as I said, the required fields, also uploading of documents. So maybe it's a transcript from another school that you need uploaded, for example, and then it gets submitted. Now, I've already submitted a form, kind of like a cooking show. I've pre-baked this form, so I won't waste our time filling out a form, but when we move over to the administration side, I'll show you the workflow. So I am now going to sign off from here, and I'm going to come into the system as an administrator. Okay, so here as an administrator, I'm first presented with a dashboard. These are insights that are actionable. So any one of these dashboard cards I can click on to drill down to the specific students that are relevant to the dashboard. I can see here, for example, waiting for registration. I have 2 students that are currently waiting for registration, so I'm just going to select that. And I'm able to see here I've got 2 students there who have submitted forms. If I want to actually see the form, I can view the registration form, and I can see the full details of that form right here. Now, typically your workflow from here is you're either going to say, hey, you registered at the wrong school, so maybe I'm going to send them to their neighborhood school, or I'm going to go right through with our registration process. So the first step in the registration process is I do a query, and it's looking to see if there's a match not only in my school, but any other school in my district. So if they used to attend, in the south end of town and now they're in the north end of town, the system will identify that. In this case, I'm going to say student not found, and I'm going to add a new student. And so there are mandatory fields that need to be entered. So for example, what is the identification document type? So in this case, we'll choose the Alberta birth certificate. As we continue down, so you'll see all of this data is filled, pre-populated from the information that was collected from the form. Is this summer school or regular school? So we'll go with regular, and they're going to be attending during the day, not at night, and they're going to have a registration status of new registration, for example. All of the information from the form has populated, and I'm now able to just save this record. So as soon as I save this, it asks me if I want to add any siblings, and I'm going to, for interest of time, I'll say no siblings. And now we are now into the student record where we can continue to manage this student's information. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to build a timetable for this student. Maybe this is the middle of September, they're a late register, and maybe I could be a guidance counselor, for example, helping them build their schedule. So here in the timetable, I am able to add courses individually, but I'm also able to search for courses based upon specific criteria. So for example, I'm going to search for all my grade 10, and I'm going to look for, in this example, I'm going to narrow it down by a specific teacher. So here are all the different courses that match that criteria, and I'm able to now just add this information to this student's timetable, and just by selecting the different classes. And so I'll add a few here, and then we will move on from this. So I'm just going to add those 3. That should be good enough for us right now. And one of the tools that we have is this timetable suggestions. And so it's quite interesting. If there's any conflicts of what the student is hoping to take, we can use the timetable suggestion tool to go out and find additional options that I might be able to select. And so depending on all the different variables, it can give you as many as 10 alternative timetable options to choose from. And in this case, I'll just say, oh no, I'm going to stick with my original, for example. Or I can even drop classes. So if I wanted to drop a class, I could see the details and choose to drop them from here. Okay. Oops, here we go. And I'll just accept that and save. So that's going to record these now on the register, and that's all dated and time-stamped, etc. Here we can see our current timetable. If I wanted to print this off for the student, I could do so. But where we're going to go to now is to show you what the grade or mark book looks like for these classes. So under the student record here, under the achievement, I'm going to come to marks and comments. And here are the 2 classes. And right from the individual student record, I'm able to do assessments on this and put in marks, Or I can come out and look at this from a teacher's view. And so a teacher's view has the whole class in front of them. And I think it's important to note here while I'm going through this that this gradebook also can synchronize with an LMS. So EDSB, D2L, are common LMSs that are, or Brightspace, I guess as it's called now, are common within the districts we serve. So, but looking at this from a full class view, we can see the outcomes, and we can also see the units that are feeding into those outcomes. So as I mentioned, in this case, all of these two units are feeding into the outcome of understand and apply scientific concepts. So I'm going to just turn on my edit icon so I can edit this. And so let's say on this one I did really bad. I only got 30 out of 100. And so what you'll see is it's going to take all of the activities that the teacher has planned to come up with my final assessment here on the left for this concept. And so as I mentioned, these achievement profiles, I'm going to look at some different ones here. I'm going to come into, let's say, our dramatic arts. So here, different outcomes, right? And in this case, I don't have any activities. I'm just generally making my selections for each outcome. So what I want to go to now is I just want to talk about how this is so highly adaptable and configurable to all sorts of different scenarios that you will have within your schools. And so I'm going to come in from the district level perspective, and we're going to look at the setup of these these are what we call achievement profiles. So first of all, we have the topics. So here's our topic. So for example, here's the language. And so the topics contain all of the outcomes. Okay, so language arts. So these are the different outcomes identified for language arts, or the arts skills outcome, the science outcomes, and so on. So these are built here as topics as a part of our setup tools. And then there's the letter grade and color coding. So what we've been seeing in my demo so far is what we call the Alberta Proficiency Scale. And I made this in my demo environment, and it's something that you can use as well as have multiple different types of grading strategies. So if I wanted to create a new one, I would just click on add, and I would be able to start building my own scale, for example. Now, with those, all of those get tied together to create, as I mentioned, your achievement profiles. So if we look at the summary here for everything that I have, here's all my different, and I'll just choose one of these. I'll go English language arts. So for my English language arts, I've got two topics and that have two different outcomes. So I've got the responsible learner skills, and they are going to be graded through the Alberta Proficiency Scale, or I could choose a different grading schematic. So again, highly configurable, but so when this profile is assigned to the class, this is what is going to automatically populate in their grade book. These also can drive your reporting strategies for your report card. Okay, I'm just going to come back to my school view. And from achievement, we're going to look at attendance. So again, attendance is something can also be synchronized with an LMS. And in this case, I'm going to do a class attendance. And I'm going to go to September 3rd, for example. And so here's the different classes I have. And so in period 1, I have the socials class. Here's all of the students. And so with attendance, everybody is marked present unless otherwise noted. And so making a selection here, your code. So depending on your codes, this could be an excused absence, but hey, this student, he's just not here. I don't know why he's not here. There's no excused absence, so I'm just going to mark him absent. So what that means now is after your teachers have done taking attendance, or even the attendance is integrated with an LMS, you will have this call home function. And that is going to help you identify any students who are absent but do not have an excused reason already logged. And so when I click on any one of these students, it's going to bring in their information. Let me come into this other one here. And that would include their contact information. So if I need to phone their mother, I have their information right here. If I need to make a note, I can make a note about their absence, or I can even change their absence. So maybe I did reach their mother and they're like, oh, yep, sorry, he's not feeling well and he's going to be late or something like that. And they can change that attendance status right from here. Okay. All right, so from here, what we want to take a look at is the reporting capabilities. So there, as we look at the menu here, I'm going to come to our student reports, and we have many standard reports built into the system. To access any one of these reports, you would just click on it. One of our customers' favorites is the quick reports tool, because it allows you to choose from different areas of your database. So I'll use my student, and these are the different data segments within my student. So I can pick and choose what it is that I want on this report just by moving the fields of data over to the far right. And so again, I'm able to just make those selections, and when I'm ready, I can choose which students I want to run the report for. So maybe I want this just for all my grade 10s or 11s, for example. And when I do create that report, it asks me if I want to save it. And this is great because if it's quite a complex report or something you're using often, you don't need to keep recreating it. You can save it, and that will put the data out here in our task manager. And you probably noticed I had some options when I was building that report, if I wanted it as a CSV or a PDF or an Excel, and very simply, it's made the report for me here. So next time I want to use that report, I can just come in and choose it. Now, in addition to the standard reports, we do also have a report designer. The report designer allows you to connect to different data sources, including your SIS, of course. You can create templates. So if I wanted to connect to a different data source, I could do that. But also your templates are saved on the server, and you're able to navigate to different templates. You can use those to start your report. So once the reports are built and saved into those folders, they're then accessible through the report viewer. So coming to the report viewer, you can segment your reports in multiple different categories, and then to run the report, you would just select the report that you want to run and take it out in that way. So, but let's now talk about report cards. So I'm going to come into my achievement. So we've already looked at the class marks and comments, and right below that is our custom report cards. And so based upon your requirements, the report cards would be part of our implementation process, and you would just select the report that you want, the report card that you want to run. Maybe you have interim report cards and so on. You select the group of students that you want to run this report for. In this case, I'm just going to do it for one student. So I have my student and I'm going to select them. So when generating these report cards, I also have an option here to create the digital documents. And so when you have digital documents configured, you're able to set up different types of documents that can be identified here. And that allows for different permissions to go around the different types of reports as well. And I'm just going to give it a title. And you'll notice here I also have this option at the same time to publish to the parent portal. And so I'm going to check that off, and I'm going to send an email notification to the parents and the students to let them know that the report card has been published. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the send email here. It's going to go into your task manager as well, and we'll see when it's completed. So if we now look at our student, at Brett, let me just come to my student record. And we'll come into Brett's student record and look at the digital documents for Brett. Here you're going to see the report card that we just added here today. Okay, and if I wanted to, so that's now published up to the parent portal. And of course, we haven't started doing a lot of assessment here, the school not even starting, so my report card is blank. But they are configurable for your school and how you want them to appear. All right, so moving along from reporting, I next want to talk about your staff records. So on our next webinar coming up in a couple weeks, I'm sure Bree will be sharing information with you. We'll be talking about the ERP, along with that, the human resources and payroll. And so as part of the ecosystem, your staff records can be automatically updated from the ERP, including, of course, their demographic information, but also any certifications, etc. And so this information being part of the ecosystem makes it very helpful when it comes time and you've done your hiring and now which teachers belong to which school, and that's all managed through the ecosystem integration. And before we finish the live part of the demo portion today, I'm just going to talk about scheduling for next year. So this is something that is very helpful for our customers at any time. So I've already, for example, next year is July 2025, right? So I can start planning for next year like right now, and I can continue to work on it. And part of that includes your class setup, but also there's a master builder. So when your students have made course selections, the master builder can automatically analyze those, load those, and look for conflicts. And that is the tools that are used to help you with that big effort of getting the scheduling of the classes done at the beginning of each year or even semester, for example, including analyzing tools as well as the ability to create snapshots. Maybe you've created a schedule and now you want to try something else, but you might want to go back to the schedule, so it would allow you to create a snapshot. So that is the end of our live demo part of this presentation. And with that, I'll hand it back to Meg.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm just going to take control of this deck. Oh, I guess we have to move this forward. Here, let's see if I can do this quickly. Yeah, that was great, Wendy. Really good overview. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions during the Q&A section. All right. Well, we'll get there. Oh, let me see if there's a faster way to move this forward without going through every slide. Sorry, everybody. There we go. It's just taking a second to come up. Okay. So now I would like to introduce Tom Hamer. Tom's going to be joining Dexter to share some insights from a customer perspective. Tom is the Associate Superintendent of Learning Services at Palliser Regional Schools. Since joining the division in 2018, Tom's made significant contributions to public education, particularly in integrating educational technology assessment and inclusive practices to enhance learning environment. So he's got great perspective from the tools as well as the technology. Tom's initiatives reflect his commitment to fostering innovative and equitable educational experiences. And he holds a Master of Education in Educational Leadership from Bishop's University. So brings a wealth of knowledge to our discussion today. And we learned earlier today that that he's also from Ottawa. I'm from Ottawa, and he spent a little time in Ottawa. So I feel very bonded to Tom now. Well, thank you, Tom. Dexter, I'm looking forward to hearing some of your experiences.
Okay. I think Tom's going to show his face, maybe.
Yeah, he's there. We can see it.
There he is. Well, maybe I'll just start quick. So most of you know my last jurisdiction was Palliser School Division, and there I joined in 2017. Never thought I'd leave the comfort of Westmount, where I grew up and went to all my school, and then started to work there. But I really enjoyed the time at Palliser, but I especially created a great relationship with Tom Hamer. And one thing that you'll learn if you get to know Tom Hamer enough is he's got a really broad set of skills, not only as an educator and understanding all of that, but also even on the business side, on the technology side especially. And Tom and I together worked really closely, and he was able to have a vision so that Palliser could really move forward. And so those that are secretary treasurers know about how much involvement we have in SIS, where we use it for lots of things, but not as in depth and not as important. In addition to being the deputy superintendent, Tom in Palliser's worked really closely with some of our other team members, Jackie Clark, to make sure that timetabling efforts were really improved in Palliser. So I would, without any further ado, welcome my good friend and colleague Tom Hamer to kind of give some insights on how he has seen the SIS from Sparkrock working in Palliser. Tom.
Thanks, Dexter. Thanks for the introduction. It's always humbling to hear some of the things you've done, and you think, wow, did I really do all that? Again, thank you for inviting me here today. I do want to thank Wendy, because walking through that demo, there's actually some things that I'm a little curious about that we're not currently using and not currently leveraging. So it's good to see that the product development is continuing, and there's some things that certainly my team and I are going to discuss about how we can further our implementation of Sparkrock and the SIS. This is actually our third year using the SIS, and what I will say is, from a historical perspective, one of the things, and Dexter alluded to it in his sort of intro earlier on before the demo, the SIS drives everything for the organization. It really sets that base data for all of your funding, and more importantly, all of the supports that the school system needs to put in place for students, be that teachers, EAs, classroom schedules, and all of those things. And before we were with the current SIS, before we were with Sparkrock, we had a mix mash of systems, and the data was, I'll say, not pristine. So one of the things that we were looking at as we implemented and worked through the implementation process was to make sure that the data was useful and was in consistent formats. And certainly the team with Sparkrock helped us do that. And we implemented this right after the pandemic. So I will say, any implementation for anybody out there right now looking at considering an implementation, I think it's very important that you refresh the memories of everybody involved that this is change management. And one of the examples I used with our principals as they were going through it and struggling at times was bringing the analogy of buying a new car. When you buy a new car, the controls are a little different, and it does still serve the same purpose. It meets the same end result, and it helps you get there. It's a tool to help you get to where you're going, but you have to get used to where the tools are and where the little dials are and where the data is held and how to access it. So I would say from an implementation perspective, a word of advice I would give everyone is to really focus on that change management aspect and really focus on working with your principals to ensure that they understand change management. And when you have those rough days, those challenging days through the process, that it's important that you really attribute the challenges that people are having to the change process, and that it will get better and it will improve, and people are going to see the improvement as you work through it. One of the things I circled back with the implementation team and the division team that worked on bringing us into the SIS and through this transition, and said, so if we were to rewind and we were to say, let's go back to where we were before, everyone has said, no, we don't want to go back. So to me, 3 years later, that's a good place to be. And we're excited to actually see some of the new improvements that are there and see how we can implement those. And what I will say also is certainly the list of partners that you have up there. I can say honestly that we tap into several of those, and that data connection, once it's set and once it's working, works very well. We work with Kev in terms of the finance piece. We work with EdSP in terms of the report card and the front-facing side of things, because of the unique nature of the system we work in and the number of report cards that we have within our district. We were at 27. We're down to, I think, 6. So we're slowly getting everybody to a standard. And then we also work with Intellimedia as well. So it's good to see that they are all up there as partners, and certainly any districts that work with those teams will see that it works well. I don't know if there are questions that people have, or if there's more specific things you'd like me to dive into.
Well, Tomo, I think that's a great intro. We don't have a lot of time left, so it makes sense to move to questions. Thank you so much, though. That was very insightful. Really appreciate that, and I especially love to hear that you saw some features that you want to dig into. That's what we want to hear, right? We want to, and we've been working hard to invest in the product. So appreciate you acknowledging that. Before we move to the Q&A, though, I did want to mention, I understand there were some technical issues and some of the attendees were not able to join the webinar from the beginning. So first of all, we deeply apologize for this and want to assure you that we'll be sending a recording of the webinar as soon as possible after this ends today. So you'll be able to catch up on what you missed on the beginning. So again, very sorry about that. But now we'll move on to Q&A. So for those who were later, if you want to ask a question, don't be shy. If you think it was already covered, no problem. We'll address it. So we've got a Q&A thing. Brianne, at the top of the page is a Q&A. So just feel free to type in some questions. We can have Tom, Dexter, Wendy address those.
We did have a couple submitted questions. So one of them is, how does the system handle the transfer of student data between different schools or districts?
Okay, I think that would be a good one for Wendy. And then maybe we can get Tom. If Tom has some input or insight, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you recall when I was doing my demo and we were adding a new student into the database, so whether I'm doing that from a form or, you know, I'm literally saying, oh, a new student and typing in their name, when I do that, the system is automatically going to give me a match. If that student is currently enrolled at another school, it'll inform me of that and allow me to transfer that student record over to my own school.
Got it.
Wendy, you're referring to within district transfers, though.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do the out of district transfer, we rely on PASI to do that. And
right.
There is a mechanism in place where our admin assistants would go into PASI, enter the student name, and now it needs to be spelled correctly, and it will identify whether that student exists in another school or already exists within Alberta and does already have an ASN assigned to them, and in which case it's quite a simple process to just back out of being the owner of that student or the educational institution for that student.
Great point. That's awesome. I unfortunately, in my use of the software, I don't get to have the live connection with Passy. So thanks for adding that in, Tom.
Yeah.
No problem.
Tom. So Bree, is there any other questions that came in through?
Yes, we have another one. Are there any limitations or challenges in integrating this system with other LMS platforms?
Do you want me to take that one too, Meg?
Ed, you go ahead, and
Yep.
and Tom's already spoken a bit about that, but please go ahead.
Absolutely. So we'd have different methods of integration depending on the LMS. For example, with Brightspace, we use the one roster standard. So one roster has been a standard that's been developed to not only send student information to another system, but there's also a part of one roster called grade passback, which will allow the grades that are collected in the LMS to be passed back to the student information system. And so then with EDSB, which does not yet have the one roster, we use a web services. And so the web services, it goes two ways. So going up is the class roster, and then coming down from EDSB is the attendance and the marks.
Great. Thanks, Wendy.
One key thing on that one to remember, and we bumped into it in our district because we had schools that had chosen to use local codes for course codes within EDSB and had not done the same schedule in the SIS, and there were some challenges there. So one of the things we've done is made sure that schools are using common syntax for and common naming conventions for courses across the district. These are things that you're going to want to work on from a data, I guess, integrity perspective, and that's irrespective of your SIS, but something we bumped into on a few occasions.
That's good insight.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. All right, I think we have time for one more question, and we have one from Ryan. We are considering Sparkrock to replace Retrieve, but it was a very expensive proposition to migrate to it in regards to the setup cost, so meaning implementation costs. Is there a full package to move to this to replace Retrieve and Power School, allowing us a single pane of glass between finance, HR, and SIS? Absolutely. And in fact, Bree, who's on this webinar from Sparkrock as well, will be sending out invites for the next session we're having, which is going to cover the finance and HR. But yes, we have a fully integrated solution. We've created an integration to the HR and finance, and no question, regardless of where you're going, there's going to be that initial investment up front to do the implementation. I mean, we will work with you and determine on what you can do versus we can do to try to help control those costs, because we know it's a tough pill for some school boards, particularly smaller ones. But there's no getting around. We want to make sure you're successful, and that does involve a lot of work. And I'm sure Tom can speak to that, like just data cleansing. That making sure we're supporting you in that new car experience he referred to. Tom, how about you add a few comments, or Dexter as well?
Sure, I can certainly add to the general piece. And what I would say, and I don't know what the costs are for the implementation, that's more the Secretary of Treasurer side of things. But what I would say in terms of an effective implementation, that is not where you want to do it cheaply, just even internally within your organization. You want to make sure that you're spending the time and money to prepare your people and the systems to transition. Because if you don't, you're going to be chasing it, and you're going to end up spending more in increments through the period of time that you're implementing. And you're also going to burn a lot of goodwill and I guess fatigue. You're going to add a level of fatigue to your people within the organization. And some of the other things that you do right now and do them well are going to start to suffer. So
Yeah, and in our experience, certainly being able to backfill some key positions so that you can actually really dedicate time is an important part of that. And having that executive sponsorship to make sure that that happens and that you continue to have momentum on the project. And I know Dexter has something to add, and then we've got to jump off.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Palliser has done the full integration. I know there's other jurisdictions, Livingston Range, working that way right now. What I would say is I found it very competitive from a cost standpoint of other systems out there. But what's really important, I think, from a leadership is the whole change management process, and that's something that I'm working with Sparkrock on, so that we set up for success and we make sure that we have all the people in the right place. And like Tom said, we don't want to burn that goodwill, burn people out. So Sparkrock of any systems that I've worked with are committed fully to making sure we're successful and adapting. So if something doesn't go exactly right, there's always the opportunity to adapt and make sure we're headed that way. But I second Ryan in terms of integrating everything. That the day we could get everything integrated into one place would surely be nice. I know, just from a management of costs and a management of understanding, and it reduces the amount of potential for system issues when we're trying to upload and download and integrate between different systems. So that's my 2 cents today.
Thank you, Dexter. Those 2 cents are always worth far more than that, at least $1. Probably $100. Appreciate it. Well, listen, everybody, we are actually 2 minutes over. Really appreciate your time. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for your engagement. Remember, a recording of the session will be sent to you within the week, but I believe we're sending some right away to those that were late joining. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.